And you know what? I hear this, and I've heard it numerous times, and there's still the seekingness, and I've even tried to stop seeking, but with the realization that that is still seeking by trying to stop. So
it's completely for the end separate experience. This message points out the absolute hopelessness of trying to find what is already. Now, this isn't, and I think sometimes it's misunderstood as the individual going, "Oh, my life is hopeless." This isn't for that individual. There's, in some way, you'd have to say that this has no relationship to the individual at all. It's actually pointing out there isn't one. And what it's pointing to is that all the demands of the individual are part of a separate dream.
So would you consider the happenings, the apparent happenings, a dream?
No. Well, I mean, now we're getting into pedantics, but not in the way I describe it normally. The dream is the experience of separation, and everything else seems to be. So it isn't real, and it's not unreal. It just seems to be. Whereas the experience of separation is just simply unreal.
It's very hard to argue, though, as an individual, that there is not something being experienced just by no one.
Absolutely.
Because the idea that there is nothing implies that there cannot be an experience.
Totally. Well, it's not that there is nothing, it's that what's happening is nothing. So the computer screen is nothing, computer screening. The words are nothing, wording. Hearing is nothing, hearing. It's not separate. It's just what is. It points to the fact that there's no one to know it or to realize it. It just simply is as it is, freely. And this is, as I think we said a few times, just not acceptable for the individual. Mm-hmm. It doesn't reflect any of its experiences or expectations. But sometimes it's heard.
Yeah. So the teachers and the gurus, because to me, this isn't a teaching.
No.
In fact, it's possibly the complete opposite. The teachers and the gurus who they sit on the stage and everything. I'm not here to suggest that it's wrong, but are they not? If they've had this unraveling or whatever it is, by trying to tell people what to do, are they not leading people more into a spiral of seekingness?
Well, I don't know about. I mean, and as I know, it seems very real as the experiencer that I am very real, and so it's quite, has a huge depth to it, and has it must be really difficult to get rid of. But really, it's thin. It's incredibly thin and fragile, the experience of separation. So it's not like they're leading them down this enormous rabbit hole, but it does confirm the experience of separation. Teaching does. If the idea is that there's a real individual, separation is real, and freedom is somewhere that could be found, that just confirms the absolute experience of the individual. That's what the individual feels, is freedom can be found. I could find freedom. And that, like I said, that confirms their experience. Whereas what we're talking about here doesn't confirm that. Points out it is already.
So if we call this a teaching, which is a bit of a paradox in itself, wouldn't it be that you don't need a teacher?
Well, what would be needed if this is already free? If freedom is what's sought or longed for, and all there is freedom, what's needed?
Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. But that, I know, I mentally get that.
Yeah.
And I look at the world and I go, fuck, the world's in a right mess. And then I also go, no, the world's perfectly free, limitless.
It is.
And beautiful and love.
Well, it might always be so beautiful, but it's absolutely free and limitless, unconditional love appearing as whatever. It's the unconditional bit that the individual doesn't get his head around, because it always has conditions on love, personal love. And it doesn't mean that things have to be horrible or that things have to be good, or they can't move from one to the other, or there can't be, bodies taking action to do something about that. It just means that whatever's happening is already this freedom.
But the biases that we'd have as that point of separation are what we then label as right, wrong, good, bad, moral, immoral. Yeah.
The labels are the individual has a story about what this is, and in a sense, what it feels needs to happen for it to become whole or free, whether that be gaining a lot of money, becoming very spiritual, whatever. I mean, every separate experience is doing that, being a good parent, being a good partner. And it's out of that experience that there's a story behind this, which was leading to what I'm longing for, where good and bad come from, personal judgment. And everybody that agrees with me, they're good people, and everybody that doesn't are bad people. Everybody that's doing things that I think are the right way to find whatever it is I've decided I feel needs to happen, those are good people. And everybody doing things that doesn't agree with that, well, those are bad people or wrong. And that whole construct falls.
Jim, talk to me about consciousness and the idea of consciousness, because obviously, again, you go back down the spirituality route and you get levels of consciousness and maps of consciousness and different degrees and everything. Yeah. What's your take on that?
Higher consciousness.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, for the experience of separation for the individual, consciousness seems to be my power or my tool. I am conscious of things, awareness. I can be aware of this, or I could be aware of that. And it's sort of the core of my free will, my ability to be aware, to make decisions, to my ownership. In a sense, you could say consciousness is my ownership of the appearance of what's happening. And there's very little to say about it from the standpoint of what we're talking about now, because it's just part of the illusion. There isn't any. And I know that's very confrontational, because it seems undeniable that consciousness would have to be a part of this. And it's just not. It's just part of the dream. It's actually separation itself. Knowing. I know I'm here. I know I'm conscious. And that it's possible for that just to fall away.
But consciousness is just not for anyone.
No. It's actually a sense of knowing, consciousness, being aware of it. Well, or what would it be if nobody knew what it was? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. It has to do with me knowing, or I know, I am conscious, or I am aware.
And that is beyond, this message is beyond I amness.
Well, it's not beyond. I mean, it's not beyond anything, because everything is included. There isn't any limit. And it's also quite simple what we're talking about, in a way undeniable, that there's just what is. But what is obvious also when it falls away is that it's just part of the dream of separation, consciousness. There's just no need.
It's just too simple, Jim.
Yeah, it is. And in that way, very unsatisfying, unfulfilling for the individual, unsatisfying. Yeah, it is. I know.
So, we could just go around in circles, to be honest, but
that's all there is.
Yeah. You know, time.
Yeah.
Once again, you go to the spiritual types, and it's like the power of now with Eckhart Tolle and stuff, like everything is now.
Yeah.
But doesn't now imply that there is a then?
Totally. Well, a real then. That there's an individual with free will that has the choice to be in a particular time as opposed to another time, and that those two times are real. Absolutely. That's the dream of it. This is actually beginningless endlessness. It's just simply that. It's just simply beginningless and endless. This is. And any sort of experience that there's partials, the ability to take one part out of the other, is just part of the dream of separation.